couple of weeks ago, I talked with Ken from marketing, and we were talking about the Marvac show. We actually just got back from it, and it was a great time. With me, I have Ryan. And back in October, Ryan did one of these solo talking about the work that he does and working with VIP installations. He works with multi-million-dollar houses and some other projects, but he's also a genius when it comes to doing RV work. There are a few people I've ever met that understand DirecTV and Dish for RVs better. And not only that, he understands connectivity in general. He gets internet. He understands cell boosters. He understands it all. And so wanted to invite him to this today to talk with us about it. And so introduce Ryan.
Yep, thank you for the intro, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you think the show went?
I think the show went great. I think a lot of people showed a lot of interest in the internet side of things, and I think that was where the focus was. Getting customers connected that way.
Yeah, definitely. So Ryan started just after me. Like before you came here, did you have any idea that you could get TV in an RV? Because I didn't.
I had no idea. No. I barely knew DirecTV existed.
No, I know. Same thing with me. So I knew that people in RVs or travel trailers could use antennas to get TV. And like when I found out they could do that, it's crazy. And so, I guess let's just start on the satellite TV side. So we offer two different things, DirecTV and Dish. Can you kind of talk about which use case is better? Like why would somebody pick DirecTV? Why would somebody pick Dish? Like what do you see?
So a lot of it's going to come down to like the programming of DirecTV and Dish Network. DirecTV has more of a sports-based platform, and then Dish Network, just different channels as well. One of the things that sets them apart is that Dish has a pay-as-you-go plan, which is really a pay month-to-month plan, not an exact pay-as-you-go. DirecTV does have plans where you can suspend service for up to 6 months per year, but that's what really sets them apart is those two options.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we have tons of people that call in saying, hey, I need to watch TV in my RV. Like, what are the questions that you want to know, right, if you're going to suggest either one? Like, what are the things that you always ask?
It's going to definitely come down to usage, how often you're using it throughout the year. You're using it year-round, you're just using it 1 or 2 months. If you're using it less than 6 months, you're probably looking more towards Dish Flex.
Yep.
And more than 6 months than DirecTV for sure.
Yeah, it makes sense. Because with DirecTV, if they're able to do some kind of contractual thing, they get promotional pricing, right?
Yes.
And so, pricing ends up working a little bit better for that. But there's definitely benefits. So some of the other things people need to know if they're in a travel trailer or an RV, what are the main components of being able to watch TV? Like what equipment do they need in order to do it?
So it's really just 3 things in reality. It's the dish itself, receiver, equipment, and that's pretty much it. So just 3 things. The dish is going to be the bulk of the startup of everything.
Yep.
But once that's locked down, you just have your monthly service.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, cool. And so there's all kinds of different dishes, right? So you have your standard dish that you put at your house, and then you have you have in motion, you have things that'll lock on but not work in motion. And so, how do you recommend, like, what's the way that you go to make sure somebody's getting into that right antenna?
Okay, so first I like to make sure that they know exactly what they're using. So the typical dish that we recommend is the King One Pro by King, which is an automatic dish that finds a signal for you when you're parked. The reason we recommend this is because aiming a satellite yourself on a tripod can be fairly difficult. You're sitting out there trying to aim it, and you don't have the typical installation tools like an aim meter that's required with the newer dishes now. It's more of an installer's tool, not something that you just carry with you.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know where to begin with that. And so that King One Pro works with both Dish and DirecTV, right?
Yes, absolutely. So it works with both. It's just a matter of configuring the power supply, which it's pretty simple. There's just a button that you press and hold for so many seconds and switch through the different providers.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so with DirecTV, they have options, right, of SD and HD if they're going to go with the domes or the larger antennas. And so can you talk a little bit about that, like what antennas do what? And I know there's pretty big price variance, but some people absolutely need HD.
Yes. So with the King One Pro and DirecTV, it is standard definition. So the One Pro that Dish Network has, Dish Network will be HD. The only downside for Dish Network that I can say is that if you wanted to do multiple TVs, Dish Network operates off of multiple satellites, so you're stuck to whatever satellite programming you're locked on at that given moment. The second unit can only watch the same as the first unit.
Oh, that's super interesting. Yeah.
So that's also something that I talk to customers about whenever they're deciding what provider they want to go with, because DirecTV is just one satellite, so you don't have that issue of not getting all your programming on the second unit.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a ton of sense. And so, is there any case, where somebody would be able to use? Because I've seen that we can put dishes on tripods, or they could mount that permanently on a pole. Is there any situation or any scenario where that makes sense to do that over, going with one of the more automatic types?
So with as far as the dish on a tripod, those are great because that'll give you HD with DirecTV, and it'll give you the full service with Dish Network if you are willing to sit out there and aim that dish itself. But it does get frustrating when you can't get that lined up, and it just takes time. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Unless you get really good at used to that, I would still recommend the automatic dishes all day. They're just super simple. They can be put on a tripod as well, or you can mount them on top of the vehicle. People like to keep them portable so they can put it away from trees and things that might be blocking their sight to the south.
Yeah, that's a good point. The King One Pro, one of the things I love about it, and I guess it works with other King antennas too, it's got that tripod mount. So, and if somebody parks in Michigan, you got a lot of trees in the campground, so you can really prevent line of sight issues with that too, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it gives you more mobility with the dish itself. You have it comes with 50 feet of wire, so you can put it away from the camper or trailer or whatever.
Yeah, super cool. And so in terms of, let's also talk about, two of the boxes. And so, you mentioned receivers. How does that work, right? I know there's receivers, DVRs, but how do you recommend somebody set that up? Is it based on the number of TVs? Can you mirror, or how do you normally say to do it?
So yes, it's definitely based on the number of TVs. You can mirror depending on how the vehicle is set up.
Okay.
The main thing that you need out of the box, the King is only going to support up to 2 tuners, which is either 1 DVR or 2 non-DVR receivers. For DirecTV, that's H24s, and the DVR being the HR24. Dish Network, that's going to be the Wally receivers.
Yep.
And those can be upgraded to DVRs, but it really comes down to how many TVs you're expecting to do. If you are going beyond 2 TVs, it is doable. Just additional equipment is going to be required.
Yeah, no, that's great to know. My next question has to do with locals. I know this is always something, it's sort of a hot button thing. We talk to RVers and people in travel trailers. And so can you talk a little bit about how locals work in an RV?
So locals, they basically work, if you can imagine a spot beam or a flashlight that's being blasted at a city or a zip code.
Yep.
Your service address is based on that zip code. So when you leave that spot beam, you lose locals completely. That's just how that's regulated. That's FCC.
Yep.
Nothing to do with DirecTV. That's just how things have to be.
Yep. That makes sense. And so if they have an OTA built onto their RV or the travel trailer, will that circumvent that in some cases if they're close to towers?
Yes. So that'll give them their locals where they're at currently. So it's that is the best solution to get around losing your locals completely.
Yeah, that's cool. And so, I know you talk to tons of RVers, and so, are you finding that there's a general percentage of people that already have some of the equipment, at least the antenna? Do you see a lot of that stuff built onto at least the newer ones?
Yeah, so a lot of customers have either built-in dishes, whether it be King, WineGuard Traveler. A lot of people have that. If you don't, it's not a problem. That's something that we can help you get.
Yep.
And potentially help you get that installed as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's super, super cool. Yeah. So, all that makes a ton of sense. It's a lot easier, I think, than people think it is to get it, right? So if somebody calls you up and say, "Hey, Ryan, I want to get TV for my RV," what's that process normally look like? And let's just say they don't have any equipment right now. They need everything, but they're traveling, right? They're going to new RV parks every couple of weeks. How do you work with that?
So the biggest thing is deciding what equipment they're going to go with, whether we are going to do the King or dish on a tripod. And then once we got that established, then it's a matter of figuring out where they're going to be for the best amount of time so we can get the product shipped. Because usually we can ship everything the same day before a certain time and expedite it at next day option so we can get it there really quick.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've seen you turn around things super, super fast, and it's the kind of nice thing is too. We've got a footprint all over the United States. We can get something just about anywhere. We have a good network of technicians if somebody absolutely needs an installer. But in a lot of cases, it's a pretty easy self-install, isn't it? Especially if you're using a tripod.
Yes. So it's pretty straightforward installation. I mean, even with the King on a tripod, you just have a wire that goes into a power supply, then connects to a receiver, then to the TV. One thing that a lot of people get confused, though, is there's a lot of satellite ports, like external satellite ports on the outside of vehicles, which they could possibly work, but they're mostly made for if you were to go to like a campground and they already have existing service and decoded service. So the biggest thing is you can use those ports as long as they don't split to different locations. That way the receiver gets the full signal and can actually decode it. People either get that professionally installed or they run it through a window using just cable straight to the power supply and then to the receiver and TV.
Yeah. Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess the bottom line with TV is that if you have a need for it, we can work with you. If you don't have the equipment, we've got it. One of the cool things about us, as opposed to other people in our space, is that right behind me is our warehouse. We have all the equipment that we need back there to build a system. We carry, the antennas in stock. We have a great partnership with King, and we have everything that they do back here. We carry the receivers. Cool thing is that we can actually sort of engineer that system in-house. Ryan can deploy it into the field. And in most cases, you can do everything yourself. So it's very, very easy. And if you can't, we can find somebody that can help you do it with installation. So, that's great about the TV side of things. So next to internet, and I think everybody that I talked to at the RV show was interested in internet. And I remember when we did this show in 2020, everybody was looking for internet back then. And we had nothing. It was like a month or two later, GOT-W3 came out, which totally changed things. And, there's been a lot of improvements. But would you say the same thing? Did you talk to anybody that didn't want internet at that show? It had to be very infrequent.
No, everyone wanted internet. That was like the biggest concern for everyone. Even if they wanted TV service, they still wanted the internet side, which is really big. And that's what we were really promoting there because GOT-W3 definitely fixed a lot of and revamped their product, and it's looking really good right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so from an internet standpoint, I think people think of it in two ways in a travel trailer or a camper, right? They think satellite. Satellite's is certainly one way to get internet. It's much easier for stationary applications than it is for an RV. And there's LTE, and to Ryan's point, the LTE side of things has changed drastically over the last couple of years. So I guess let's start with that. Of our offerings, we work with GOT-W3, and they have two different things, right? They have a GOTSpot, and they have that SimTel router. Can you talk about those two and like the differences?
Yeah, so the main thing is the GOTSpot's going to be more of a handheld. It's still a portable device. You can take it anywhere you want with you. It has a display screen on it that tells you how much data you're using and how much you have left. Now the SimTel, that's going to be more like a router style, which is still portable. You can use it with batteries or have it direct plugged in. So you could take it with you in the RV, put it in your house, back and forth kind of thing. Completely portable. There's no crazy installations. It's just get the service. It works with the three main carriers, Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T. So you get the most coverage out of most hotspots out there that are just carrier specific.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and a lot of people at home, you think about a hotspot. If you have a cell phone plan, chances are you have a hotspot on it. It might be 15 or 20 gigs. And they say it's unlimited, right? But if you hit that threshold, you're dropping down the dial-up speeds, right?
So here's where a lot of people get confused with hotspot and unlimited data. Unlimited data is the phone data on your cell phone. That's what you use. So if you're on your phone surfing internet, that's unlimited data.
Yep.
If you're on Facebook on your phone. But when you're talking about a hotspot, that's its own separate thing. So hotspot is limited data, which for me, I got AT&T, I got 50 gigs of hotspot data. Once I use that, I'm done. Unless I go and pay for GOT-W3, either the GOTSpot or SimTel, you have plans that range from 50 gigs all the way up to 850 gigs of data, so that'll have you covered for a month, and it's no contract plans.
Yeah, it's a giant amount of data. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's a really good point about hotspots too. And so, I've noticed when we talk to people, a lot of people think of, using the internet as a primary means of watching TV, right? And, there's a number of things that you can stream, but my understanding is that streaming HD video chews up between a gig and two gigs an hour, right? So that can go pretty quick, especially when you have multiple streams. What do you think the best bet is for TV and internet, right? I mean, you can certainly do it on a device like that, but do you see value in having a satellite service and then having internet service for staying connected, or what do you recommend normally?
It's going to come down to how many people are using that stream service because, yeah, like you said, 1 to 2 gigs for every hour of HD stream will eat up quite a bit of data, especially if you have 5 devices streaming at the same time. So that's when satellite is not data related. It's just a matter of having the service and having an active plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And then back to the satellite thing. I mean, so somebody can also obviously record like an HR-24, right? And so you can do that kind of stuff too. But and so if they go satellite, like they go DirecTV or Dish, and they go internet, generally, I mean, so it's potential they could save money, right? Because they go with that 50 gig plan or even the 300 gig plan plus like a DirecTV package and be sort of at that same threshold as an 800 gig plan, right?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Because first off, your streaming options, you're going to be having your Netflix, your Hulu, and things like that. And now when you're talking about live stream, now we're talking about actual plans that are getting in the pricier range, as opposed to just having your satellite service, which is going to be similar. So having 2 different options is definitely doable. That way you get the best of both.
Yeah, it makes sense. So I was doing some testing. GotW3 was kind enough to send us 2 activated devices last week. And my office here is in the middle of a metal building. And I got up to 80 gigs down. Or I'm sorry, 80 megs down. I don't want to, that sounded really dumb. 80 megs down. And that was plenty of speed. I mean, you can do just about anything with that. So you can imagine that if you're in a good area with cell phone coverage, and you have that device, somewhere close to where it can pick up, you can probably do a lot of different things. I mean, you can game with that, right?
So you can game, but expect that there is going to be some latency.
Makes sense.
But it definitely, especially think about when you're gaming though, that's when you do a lot of downloading. That's going to eat some of your data. So you want to definitely have one of those higher plans if you do gaming. But it is definitely doable. You should be able to play at least a fair bit.
That's cool. And then, video conferencing. Like we talk to a lot of people that, they either live in their RV and they work out of it, or people that maybe go out in the summer, but they still do work in the RV. And these plans are enough to do video conferencing, right? You could do Zoom or Teams or something like that if you have the right speeds.
Yeah, definitely. You could definitely, because it's just like having the speeds from your cell phone. So if you could Zoom from your cell phone, you should be able to Zoom from the Godspot or Syntel devices.
Yeah, beautiful. And so going back to it, right? So a lot of people think of internet for an RV in terms of, satellite-based offerings versus LTE offerings. And so, some of those traditional satellite-based internet plans, right? We think about like the Viasats and the HughesNets, who have awesome programs if you're in a business or a home in a rural or remote area. They just don't work now for RVs, though, right? I mean, there's just not an antenna that's cost-effective that's going to work with those. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, the biggest issue is that a lot of RVers are mobile. They don't have any mobile satellite as far as Viasat, and that's price reasonable for an RV.
Yeah, that makes sense. And some of the providers, too, are based on spot beam. Ryan mentioned, thinking about a flashlight coming down from space and covering a particular area. And so that spot beam is very important when it comes to some satellite providers, because when you go outside of that, suddenly you don't have coverage because that's what your plan is based on. And so, and what are you hearing about Starlink? I know we don't work so much with Starlink. We can sell, some of the antennas, but, what are you hearing about that?
So I hear a lot of people calling for Starlink, not so much as how to help them exactly, because they're calling us to get Starlink instead of Starlink themselves. So I'm not sure if there's some type of disconnect there or what's going on, if they're having a difficult time hooking up with Starlink to actually get that get on that list to get the equipment installed on their vehicle and plan if it's actually available where they're at is the biggest issue, I think, right now, because it's not fully deployed if I'm pretty sure it's not.
Yeah, no, you're correct. I mean, we're hearing that too. There's capacity or demand issues, and I think there's people that are having good experiences with it. The one thing that I would say about LTE, and especially related to the next thing we're going to talk about, is that it's going to work in a good chunk of the country, right? Especially since it's working with those three carriers at the same time. The other thing is it's extremely cost effective. And so, you've got a device cost, and whether that's at Gotspot or that SimTel device, that Gotspot, $160, and that SimTel device is like $280. And then, you've got monthly data costs, but to get into it is not expensive. And so, that's one of the cool things about LTE. And then it's also like a month prepaid service, right? And so, you can stop service. It's not contractual, in other words, if you find that it's not fitting your needs. But we have a lot of people that are super happy with it. And that, one of the last things I want to talk about today is, has to do with cell phone signal boosters. And we're talking about, those LTE devices or the fixed wireless internet, and then cell phone signal. Can you talk a little bit about cell boosters? You've been working with these for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So cell phone boosters are definitely something that are going to pair very well with the internet devices, as well as your own cell phones for that matter. So basically how it works is you have an external antenna that attaches on the outside of the vehicle, which helps bring in that signal that is normally blocked off by the vehicle itself. And so it brings in the signal, goes to a booster, and then rebroadcasts it through an internal antenna to the entire vehicle. So it's not carrier specific, so it boosts all cell carriers. It's a one-time purchase. There's no subscription. It's just a one and done.
Yeah. And they are not expensive, and there's a number of options for RVers, and so that's something like a 65 decibel gain, something like that out of that RV 65.
I believe it's like 50 or 65.
Yeah, 50 or 65. So what does that mean to somebody that's looking for one of these? What's that decibel gain mean to them, or like why is it important?
So the reason it's important is because, well, when you drop so much before a certain decibel level, that's when you experience that like 1-2 bars, and then the drop calls, or you're not getting calls. So that signal that's outside that might be 1 or 2 bars inside the vehicle now is either 0 or 1 bar.
Yeah.
So when you bring in that extra signal from outside that's getting blocked off and you rebroadcast that inside, that helps boost up that signal, gives you more signal for phone calls, online, emails, whatever. And especially with the internet side, because that's what it's totally relying on, is that strong signal. So the stronger the signal, the faster speeds you should experience.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And they make a huge difference. Yeah, they make a huge difference. That's cool. And so some people that we talk to, some people when they want to get away, they want to get away. They don't want to be able to use their phone. They want to be able to check email. But for a lot of people, they want to be able to touch it at home. They want to be able to see what's going on. They want to keep up with, whatever it is. And so, if you want to be able to, stay in tune with what's going on in your life outside of that RV, this is a great way to do it. It's not going to work, obviously, if you're in an area with zero signal, right? You got to have some kind of a signal present. So the ones that we work with, I know that we have some cradle boosters, but let's just talk about that drive RV or that new Rover Duo. That'll work with multiple devices at the same time, right?
Yes. So yes, there's the cradle where you just put your cell phone in, and that cell phone will have a boosted signal. But there is an internal antenna WeBoost kit that has an internal antenna that broadcasts it to everyone in that vehicle. So everyone should experience higher gain on their cell signal.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So that, in a nutshell, and that's a lot of information. That's RV connectivity. We do a lot of different things. One of the nice things about us too is that we're not a one-trick pony. We don't just do TV. We do a full, all-encompassing connectivity solution. And so, whatever your needs are when you're out on the road, we're the right people to help. Ryan's been here for a long time. You can see how good he is at this. And so I'll give you a phone number to reach us at. Our telephone number is 866-726-4182. That's the Signal Connect team. If you have something, a need for an RV, Ryan's your guy. You can just ask for Ryan. and he'll be happy to help you. Doesn't matter where you're at in the country. If you're in Michigan, close to us, we can help you. If you're in Arizona, we can help you. If you're in Washington, we can help you. As long as you're in the United States, we can help you. So we appreciate everyone's time today. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Ryan, thank you so much for joining, and hope everybody has a great rest of your day.